not everything needs to be perfect to be valuable or to be important. It's Gabriella. I don't go by Gabriella ever. But I'm from Fort Myers, which is like 3 hours south of Orlando. I grew up in Orlando until I was 7 and then moved to Fort Myers and then ended up coming back to Orlando for college. I was always raised in really white sports. Swimming's a very white sport, and I also did lacrosse for a couple years, very white sport. And I just think as a person of color, there's for some reason a stigma of you have to do 2 times more to be equal. And so I had to be perfect to be considered of the same value or worth as somebody who maybe was doing half as the same thing as me. I was in schools that had that demographic for my entire life, and I'm still at one. I do just think people of color have to fit a certain mold to be considered an acceptable person of color. When I came to college, I was still doing my summer job, and I was like a remote receptionist, and I did it like 25 hours a week. And it was exhausting, and they paid me really good, so I stayed and I kept doing it, but I had no life. I would go to my classes, and then I would get back here and I would do emails for 6 hours a day, and that's what I would do every day. And I just kind of realized that I didn't want to live like that, especially as a college student. It just was a miserable way to live, especially as I'm already isolated because of COVID. You know, quarantine happened, and I was like, well, I have a lot of time. And so I just started painting again, just to kind of to fill my time. But I didn't do anything like this for the first probably 4 months of me building up my business. I did portraits. There's still like surrealism portraits. And so getting into abstract art and it being my whole brand was kind of an accident. There was one day where I was working on a portrait and I was like, this causes me so much stress. So I'm just so much of a perfectionist that when things were in any way not aligned, it would give me so much anxiety. And so I was like, I'm gonna take a break, and today I'll just paint something fun with no plan and just give myself a break. And that was my first abstract piece. And I was like, oh, look, it looks kind of cool, and I'll post it so my friends can see it. And I had so much positive feedback from it, and I was so taken aback. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, are you selling this one? This is so beautiful. And I was so confused. And I was like, maybe I'll just make a few more, and they're nice and they're fun to do. And then it turned into this. When I did that abstract piece that one day, it was just to clear my mind. So I just can't do another piece like this. So things weren't blending right. It just would make me so upset and feel like my worth as an artist or as a person would just decline so rapidly, because in my eyes it wasn't perfect. And with these, there's literally no way that I can be like, okay, now it's perfect. There was one piece I did, it was a George Floyd piece, and I was very anxious about selling it because I did not want it to go to the wrong person. It's just scary to think that even me posting a picture of that painting on my website could deter thousands of customers simply for the fact that they just don't like it. My race doesn't define who I am, which is why this style of art is really fun, because nobody can really tell me you're excluding or you're including. It's what really is it? Doing art has also given me a community on social media, and I've made so many friends that I've never met in real life, but we're able to bond over something and support each other, and we all have such different styles. And it not only gives me a community, and it allows me to have my art in people's homes all across the country. And I just recently had my first order that goes to the United Kingdom, and that blew my mind that something I made is gonna be in somebody's house all the way across the world. But it keeps me busy, and it enables me to be independent and feel proud of, if I want to go buy coffee, I'm buying coffee with money that I earn. I've always wanted to go to law school, and so I still plan on going to law school. And so I always wanted to be somebody where little girls who look like me could look up and be like, I can do that too. And with art, it's something that I don't know how it'll play into my life in the future. And it may come to a point where doing it as a business is just no longer feasible. But I know I'll always do it just as a source of joy. And even just in the arts and in paintings, minorities aren't that prevalent. And I think it was interesting that I was able to make something that was so unique and show that it's possible to succeed being completely out of the norm, because minorities already kind of feel like they're out of the norm. which is why I wanted to just take my own path. And I struggled with art for a long time too, because I would compare myself to other artists and be like, well, my portraits don't look as good as theirs, and how do they make theirs look so realistic and mine don't? And that's why I just decided, well, like, then I'm just gonna do something that nobody else does, and I'm not gonna have anything to compare it to. I just can compare it to myself and be happy. And so I just was kind of determined to make something out of this, and so I did.